Welcome CNG 124 online to Tuesday. What's today? April 23rd. Let's see, I just went over the discussions for last week. I'm trying to think. I'm glad things are getting easier for some. Whoa. That day's off on that one. Let's go back to week 12, though. I'm glad it's getting easier for some, and as I started to read through them, issues seem to be still just a little bit of Packet Tracer, and then Wireshark. There were issues there, which I understand because we haven't used Wireshark in a month, so we do tend to get a little rusty on that. But I'm glad that I think it was John C. Went back to week 7, saw what he did there, and then incorporated that back into his current lab, and that's kind of what this course is about. It's we learn some stuff, and then we kind of move on, but then we come back to it, and it helps us reassess, what we're doing in the class. Last week we did 3-way handshakes, and that was just simply looking at how we interact with websites. Hopefully you chose. I haven't looked at anybody's assignments yet, but hopefully you chose assignments or web top or web pages that you go to often. Your bank web page. I don't know. I like Red Lobster, so I always kind of use Red Lobster as my go-to example. But make sure check out what goes on behind the scenes. I was talking with I forget who in the face-to-face class, but we were discussing. As soon as you get that Alexa dot and you plug that in, immediately it's talking over the internet. I shouldn't say immediately. After you connect it to a Wi-Fi, it's talking across the internet to get whatever. It's updating. You're adding it to your account. It's looking for. You just said, "Hey Alexa, what's the weather supposed to be like today?" It's checking information across the web, and I would bet that I don't have one in front of me. I would bet that if you were to analyze the traffic on there using Wireshark, and you did a start, and then you asked it, what's the weather supposed to be like, you can see what kind of information it's passing, UDP or TCP type information back and forth, and see this go on and actually understand, how it works behind the scenes. Very, very, very cool stuff. Let's see, we're at week 12. Or no, we're at week 13. We're at week 13. Only 2 more weeks left, week 14 and week 15. So this week we have a test. It's your test 3. We cover chapter 6, the end of it, which we're talking about IPv6. And I think in this discussion, it's important to see that IPv6, CMD, and get in the habit of running CMD as administrator. It's going to help you out in the long run. IPconfig. So there's my basic IPconfig. I can see that I do have a link local address, and we kind of saw that in the what the link local address means in the slides for this week and in the readings for this week. Starts with FE80 ... which we can tell there's zeros here, but to identify how many zeros here, we have to actually look at the whole thing. And we see the hexadecimal values, each byte containing 2 characters, right, of hexadecimal notation, B8 to A357C. And then we see in the back end here a percent sign and a 16. Now that's the indexed notated number that your computer is kind of, I would say at this point as we're starting it, think of it as a port, but not necessarily a port address. It's like a port. Your computer's listening and conversating out of that indexed value. but it's not necessarily a port number. Like it's not port 16, it's just an indexed value. I'm sure when you do the CMD and do IP config on your computer, the chances are good that it will not be 16. It could be 11, it could be 4, it could be just a number that your computer is listening to IPv6 conversations on. We do this tomorrow, could be different. Excuse me. But realize that that number can change. It's just it is at this point for you guys similar to a port. Not specifically a port, but similar to a port. When we look at IPv6, understand that it's 128 bits, 64 in the front, 64 in the back. That back is the host portion, which is made up of the MAC address. And I didn't get a MAC address on this one, so if we do up arrow, oops, /ALL, we get a MAC address right here, and kind of looking at the MAC address versus the DHCP version 6 address, the 001.001.248.6. If we look at that, that's actually the Microsoft provisioning of my IPv6 and not the IEEE standard, where it's taking my physical address, splitting it down the middle, inserting FFFE, turning that left 7th most bit on. So here we go, 1234, 1234, oops, 123, and then we turn on that 7th bit there, and then that value will change. If we look at the slides for this week, there we are. The slides for this week, we can actually see the changes. I forget which slide they're exactly on. Yeah, so here's the Microsoft IPv6 random address generator, and specifies the index interface that traffic is sent from. So like I said, much like a port. And then if we look here, the IEEE EUI64 standard, which takes our MAC address, splits it down the middle, inserts FFFE, turns on the 7th bit. So here we have a 0. Once we turn on that 7th most bit, remember this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll hop into this one, 5, 6, 7, which will end us on the 2. We'll turn that 2 on, and then we get the value transition down here. And this would be our host IPv6 address. Now the front part would belong to the ISP, or the front part would belong to the network, essentially. We would not change that, and that would be derived from our either our ISP on the outside for our public interface, or on our internal, we would come up with that at that designation for IPs. IPv6, really fun to use. There's no more broadcast. There's multicast, unicast. With the multicast, though, it does go to specific nodes. So the FF02::1 goes to all nodes, PCs, anything that you'd find on the end, phones, printers, etc. Where F.2, or I'm sorry, ::2 would go to just the routers. Routers will only answer that. And once again, not everywhere is ready for IPv6. We kind of get back into that for review again with some tunneling protocols. And that's about it. For this week, I brought my home laptop so I can start grading what you guys have for Packet Tracer and giving you feedback on that. Once again, as we approach the end of the semester, make sure to get that work in. I'm fairly lenient with the grades. Some points are better than no points. I want you guys to succeed, and I can understand that we're in an online environment. I'm not behind you to coach you. We do have to set up some sort of arrangements that we can both meet on. But as we approach the end of the semester, once again, if we go to week 15, If you feel you need practice, say like week 14 or week 15, realize that I do run an open lab here on campus, if it does open up. And the open lab here on campus consists of TAs and monitors. Friday there's a computer networking TA. Sunday the same TA is back. I believe there's 2 people on Sundays. I wish I had a schedule in front of me. But I'll find that schedule and post it on our site. That way, if you guys still feel like you need more practice before entering the, before you enter the finals week, I clicked in the wrong week. If we go to week 15, there's really no assignments for this week. It's you preparing yourself, and don't take this like, oh, I don't have to do anything for that week. Definitely, if you're spending 10 hours a week on this course during the week, perhaps you use those 10 hours, 12 hours a week to rehearse for the test, start studying for the test. When we go back to week 14, I believe, assignments, nope, is it 13? Yeah, I think it's this week that we have that. Yeah, so Lab 24 skills review, that's a very similar document assignment that is exactly like the skills lab. So once again, rehearsing this will prepare you for the skills lab. The final exam, that's the final skills. The final exam itself is just a basic quiz that kind of you've been taking all along, but it's going to cover, if I say everything from the start of the semester, well, at this point, you guys are already conditioned to know everything there is about subnetting, IP addresses, looking at traffics, identifying frames, the OSI model, the TCP IP model. So if you do have any questions, make sure to reach out. If you want to come to campus and talk with Nate and Alex, I believe, now that I'm thinking about it, they're the ones that work the Friday and the weekend. They're here from, I believe, from 9 o'clock a.m. to around 5 p.m. Here to help you guys do that. On Friday, I think there's one class that goes from 1 to 3:40. But since during that break, perhaps you just meet with them one-on-one in the Poudre River Library here, that's right next door. With that extra long video this time, make sure you watch this whole video. But with that, if you had any questions, reach out to me. Call me on my desk phone, 970-204-8419, or shoot me an email. I'll be happy to go over information with you guys.